Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday hangout time. It's 8 p.m., so let's get started here. I hope you're all having a great week so far and a great Wednesday. There are a couple of things I wanted to go over tonight, so let's get to it. As always, I do have the Q&A portion of the hangout turned on the right-hand side. So if you have a question, just please ask through the interface, and I will check before I wrap up the questions that have already been submitted. And if I don't get a chance to get to your question, I will cover it either on the next hangout, or if it's a little bit more urgent than that, just please let me know with however you normally get in contact with me, and I'll get a hold of you with the answer. All right, so the first question that we had for this evening comes from Brandon. And Brandon asks, does sparkling water count toward our hydration goals? Someone told me that the carbonation makes it not good for you, and that I was thinking of ways to ditch my diet soda habit and thought about getting a SodaStream or buying the flavored sparkling water, but I don't know if it's any better or worse. Brandon, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. So a couple things to address here with your question is that sparkling water would count towards your hydration goals. Yes, that's definitely count that, please. So there's no real research that shows that there's anything wrong with the carbonation itself. Looking at health-wise, it's a much better choice than diet soda, if only for the positive benefit on your dental health. I have a diet soda habit myself. I realize that comes at a cost of my dental health, and it erodes your enamel on your teeth and blah, blah, blah. So that would be a great way to kind of use the habit loop, the cue, the routine, and the reward to change that to sparkling water. And that will get you away from the diet soda, I think, unless you're also deriving a good portion of your caffeine from the diet soda. But that's neither here nor there. So now that's not to say that no one would have issues with sparkling water, because some people might have a problem with carbonation as far as it might upset their stomach or give them cramps. But if you're already drinking diet soda, that's probably not going to be an issue for you, because the carbonation levels would probably be similar. I know you mentioned you thought about getting like a SodaStream. So I'm only passingly familiar with those, but I believe you can actually control the carbonation in the SodaStream. So, you just got to be careful not to ramp it up too much, because that might upset your stomach if it's more carbonation than you're used to at one time. Something to keep in mind. The benefit of something like this is sparkling water is known to help with hunger. So it's possible that all the times where you're drinking regular water, you wouldn't automatically drink diet soda, but actually replacing some regular water with sparkling water that's carbonated may actually make you feel more full, simply because you're, instead of just going all diet soda to sparkling water, you're drinking the sparkling water at times when you normally wouldn't drink diet soda, if that makes sense. So speaking of hunger, those of you that are doing intermittent fasting, sparkling water is a great way to get through the fasted portion of your day, or to extend your fast a little bit longer. So I would say thumbs up to the sparkling water. I haven't thought about getting my own SodaStream. Every time I see like Perrier sparkling water, it just seems so expensive to me. But I'm the ultimate penny pincher as far as groceries go, because I have to feed 4 people that are hungrier than I am sometimes. So that's just something to keep in mind. But give it a shot. And would love to hear about it on the community if you have any experiences, positive or negative. And I think that would be helpful for other people to hear that too. So let us know. Alrighty. So I have a topic that I wanted to briefly discuss. As I hope you know by now, I'm not very strict about food choices when it comes to weight loss. It's really, in the end, about making your life as enjoyable as possible while you lose weight, and not feeling like you're abstaining from foods entirely or from things you enjoy entirely. That's suffering. We want to cut out suffering. We don't want you to be suffering through this, or it's never going to last. So you may have been on fad diets before. So as you know, I don't particularly have one way as the true way. Every person's path is going to be different. But if you had to put a label on my nutritional philosophy, I would call it a low-suffering diet. You can tell people, yeah, I cut out suffering from my food choices. from my diet, and that's the philosophy I'm following. So on the other hand, one of the things that we are working on and talking about is how certain food choices are going to allow us to feel fuller while being at or under our calorie goals. So those food choices would be things that are high in protein, and or foods that are high in fiber, and or foods that are high in volume, something like vegetables. Not all vegetables are high in fiber, and or foods that make you feel really full but wouldn't necessarily be considered high in protein or fiber or volume, which basically describes fruit. Some fruits are not that high fiber, not that high protein, and low volume, but they still make you feel full. And we've talked about that previously, and that's due to the specific type of sugar that's in fruit called fructose. And basically what happens is your liver stores fructose, and when you eat that fruit, it fills up the stored sugar in your liver, and it basically blunts your hunger. So something to keep in mind. But if you notice something, what I basically described is whole foods. So the reason that I did that is that other than whole foods making you feel full and helping combat your hunger, there is another aspect regarding food choices that I wanted to comment on, and that's calories out. The basics of weight loss are burning more calories than you take in, which is essentially the calories you eat minus the calories you burn just through being alive and through your activity, be it regular activity, be it exercise-based activity, and then there's activity levels that you get as a result of eating your food. Good example of this is people that say they have fast metabolisms or people that have slow metabolisms. I had a friend in high school, he probably weighed 100 pounds despite being 6 foot tall. When he ate more than he normally did, he would jitter all over the place and constantly move around and shake and have restless leg syndrome. If I ate more than I normally do, I would take a nap. That's the difference in activity level. So that's modifying the calories outside of the equation. So if the number, the end result here, is negative, you're in a calorie deficit, you lose weight. If it's a positive number, meaning you have an energy surplus, you gain weight. So this might sound simple, and while the basics are simple, it's an incredibly complex process, not even considering the fact that getting to that negative number is hard on so many levels. If it weren't hard, we wouldn't have to worry about losing weight ever. And I mean hard, not just like figuring out what to eat, but there's lots of psychological things going on and physiological things going on with hunger and cravings and all that type of thing, that those things we try to address. So while we tend to focus on the calories and the food aspect, modifying calories in, how much we eat, the foods we eat do actually affect the other side of the equation, the calories out. So the calories, that we eat through the calories that are burned through the eating of food. And in scientific literature, this is called the thermic effect of food. And that's really just a sciencey way of saying some foods require more energy to actually digest. So an example of that would be a food that's high in protein or fiber. It's going to take significantly longer for your body to digest it. A lot of prepackaged convenience store foods, like a can of Pringles, are so heavily processed that you really don't have to do much chewing. You can basically put it in your mouth, chew it once, and swallow it, and your body's able to use that for energy pretty much right away. There's no actual real energy being used in addition to what's in there to burn that for fuel. Something like a piece of steak, you have to chew it all the way, you have to swallow it. It's high in protein and fat, it takes time to digest. So that's a big difference in that, and that can affect, let's just say you had a 2,000 calorie diet of 100% whole foods, and you had a 2,000 calorie diet of Twinkies. You would probably lose more weight on the 2,000 calorie diet of 100% whole foods, simply because you are then using more energy to digest all of that food, as opposed to not really using energy to digest 2,000 calories of Twinkies. So that's something that makes a difference. It really does make a difference in the numbers. So that's something to keep in mind. So if you're at the point where your lifestyle habits are in order, you have your sleep under control, you have your stress under control, tracking is easy for you, and you're almost at the point where you don't need to track and you can really just kind of eyeball things. Once you're at that point and you find that you're not making progress, it might be time to sit back and audit your food choices and say, am I making the best food choices that I can here? If you came to me and said, hey, Chuck, I wanted to have an optimal diet for being as healthy as possible and living as long as possible and still losing weight in the long term and keeping it that way, what should I do? My answer would be that I would recommend a mostly plant-based diet with lots of fiber from both fruits and vegetables and adequate protein from whatever sources you prefer. So if you're filling up a plate of food from like a buffet line or a picnic or a party, I would say make half or more than half of that plate plants. That's a great start. So my point is that these whole foods are going to take more energy to digest than highly processed foods, and you're likely going to get more nutrients per calorie, which are involved in how you feel and how much energy you have. And again, if you have more energy and you feel great, you're going to feel like being more active, which again causes the amount of calories you burn to go up. So these things all matter, and they're little tiny things, but together they're really powerful and they make a huge difference. I also understand that no one's going to have a whole 100% optimized whole foods diet. There's no point in that. Plus, what's a whole food is kind of nebulous in some parts. Like, I'd consider beer a whole food because it's really minimally processed. And for me, if someone told me that you could live 2 more years of your life, but you could never drink beer again, I'd have to think long and hard about that. So something to keep in mind. So really, if you are working towards having more whole foods in your diet, 80 to 90% of that time will get you the best results. Shooting for 100% is setting yourself up for failure. I myself don't do that. I've never advocated for anyone. The only exceptions being for that is if you're like a performance athlete or you're in a weight-based sport where you have to be at a certain weight by a certain date, or if your financial well-being is directly related to your weight loss or your appearance. Those are different scenarios, but for pretty much anyone that's watching this, I'm guessing that's not you. So in the end, 80 to 90% of the time, whole foods, and fill in the rest with whatever you like. As always, there are exceptions. Some people can't handle certain foods that are like their binge triggers, and that's different. It's a little bit outside the context, but yes. So again, yes, you can lose weight eating only Twinkies, but the difference in quality of fuel you're putting in your body does really matter for the big picture. So that's what I wanted to talk about in that regard. I don't see any questions being submitted, but I had something come in earlier that I wanted to address. And someone actually asked me if they were going to only eat one vegetable, what vegetable would I recommend doing? So my answer to that is that's a really tough question to answer because you get so much from vegetables that's not just feeling full and fiber. Vegetables are one of your main sources of vitamins and minerals, and you can't get all of your vitamins and minerals you need from a single vegetable. And you can't really get them from a pill either. So if you just picked one vegetable and ate only that vegetable, you might say, look at all these vegetables I eat. I eat vegetables now, I'm healthy. You might be missing out on nutrients that your body needs to be fully functioning that you're just simply not getting by avoiding the other vegetables. And I understand that if you're coming from a diet with no vegetables, that it's going to be really hard to just do that like a flip of a switch. I know that when I started, I hated vegetables entirely. And I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to say it again because it is worth mentioning, is your taste buds are a direct result of what you eat. And what I mean by that is your taste buds are related to your gut bacteria. That's the microorganisms that live in your stomach and your intestines that help digest your food. If you feed it nothing but fast food, it is the microbacteria that live there are adapted to digesting fast food by design. So when you put something in your mouth that's not fast food and it's a vegetable, it's going to taste bitter as a result. That's what happens. If you kind of push through that, maybe using a little bit of your reserved willpower, and you start to include more vegetables, and you don't have to just include them like as a side dish. You can find ways to kind of sneak them in there, like make macaroni and cheese and bacon with broccoli and sneak it in there. As you do that over time, you will change the gut bacteria in your body. And as a result of that, your taste buds will change. You will stop having that bitter taste from fruits and vegetables that is a result of having a high sugar diet that's low in protein and fiber. So if you haven't heard me say this before, you can't just go from a low fiber diet to a high fiber diet overnight, because again, these microbacteria, certain ones grow from fiber. So if you just go from 5 grams of fiber a day to 50, basically what's going to happen is there's a bunch of these microorganisms are going to die, and you're going to be in the toilet for a couple of days and feeling horrible and cramps and gas and bloating while new ones take over. And it's a process you kind of have to slowly ramp up. So are there vegetables that are more nutritious than others? Yes, some vegetables have way more nutrients than other ones. Basically, some of the healthiest vegetables that have the most nutrients are seaweeds. A lot of the water-grown vegetables have more nutrients and things like iodine as compared to their land-grown ones. I don't know too many people that like seaweed. I've tried it a couple times. Really not something I like. Although I do know lots of people that like sushi, so that has seaweed in it. Something to consider. 2 other alternatives I can think of, though, would be like kale or broccoli. And lots of people hate kale. I know plenty of people that work in the fitness industry that hate kale so badly. There are a couple of ways you can kind of include it. There are some medical, I think thyroid related to thyroid. If you have thyroid issues, you might not be able to eat kale because of the way it messes with your iodine levels. And broccoli is always a good one. But like I said, you can't just eat one of a vegetable permanently as your solution, because you'll be missing out on vitamins and minerals. And here's the thing. We don't know all the vitamins and minerals. We haven't discovered them all yet. So simply having a pill doesn't address all the complex things your body needs to function fully. So that is something to keep in mind. All right, so I feel like I covered a lot this evening. If you have any questions about anything that I've covered, or if you thought of another question while I was talking, just please let me know, and I'll cover it next week. All right, well, thank you for watching, and everyone have a great night. Talk to you soon.